Welcome, Immigrant Nation. Another week, another new episode. This is your host, Aaron Deliosa, and this is an Immigrant's Live podcast. Today's podcast guest is a world traveler with a spirit of adventure. Once a Safari Rani, she now explores the vibrant streets of Ottawa. As a first-generation kid, she embodies the transformative power of travel and believes solo journeys are the best way to discover the world. Join us as we dive into why traveling is essential for personal growth and the importance of staying open and curious along the way. This has been such a great episode because I recorded with one of my closest friend, and you can tell we were just having fun. So please enjoy, and without further ado, let's get into the show. Isa, dalawa, tatlo. Today's guest is a world traveler and one of my favorite people in the world. Once a Safari Rani, she is now running the mean streets of Ottawa. Everyone, please welcome my incredible friend, Shital Patel.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of sad going from Safari Rani to running the streets of Ottawa.
I knew you'd like that one.
Ah, what has my life become?
Hey, you have become an old white lady. Yeah, like what do you call it? Like a homemaker.
No, no, never.
But
Not
isn't
that
that
there's anything wrong with that, but that's just not me.
it's always like I don't wanna hurt people's feelings. You're always like that.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes some people need a smack in the face, you know?
I'm not in the business of hurting people's feelings. I feel like I
Eh,
can be really, really harsh.
mm,
And so I need to, watch myself. And that actually makes it difficult talking to you because we are good friends
mhm,
and I'm very comfortable talking to you.
mhm.
I feel like I'm at a risk of saying crazy shit.
We can always take it out. Anyways, thank you for coming on the podcast for the third time.
My God, I'm honored. I'm
Yeah,
honored
well,
that you're having me a third time. I don't know if I don't know if I'm that interesting that you need to talk to me three times on the pod and send that out to the world, but I'm here for it.
I love it. Listen, dude, if you're in my life, you're interesting. That's what it matters to me,
I love that.
you know?
Uh,
Anyways, do
yeah.
you want to mention your Instagram or anything, or
Yeah, sure.
go ahead?
Well, I haven't, I've traveled over 35 countries or something like that. I've stopped counting. And throughout that time, I've always wanted to make like an Instagram account and share some of my stories and my photos. And I love recording and taking photos, and I've never done it. Um, I made an account, but it's never been active. It's called Blame My Wild Heart on Instagram.
Hmm,
And I get to go to Romania for 6 months starting
amazing.
next week. So I'm hoping that I'll finally make that project of mine a reality. So if anyone wants to follow me over there, please do.
Blame my wild heart. I can't wait. You should, because every time I text you, like, yo, where's the pictures, man?
I uh I can't be bothered sometimes.
What do you
Like
do?
I appreciate these people who are like full on influencers and like just posting and editing their photos and like the production quality is there. And then sometimes I'm just like, I can't live up to that. And so I just don't do it. But I think I think it's worth sharing. I would like to share. I would like
Mm.
to inspire people to get out there and travel. It's
Why
been
is
such
it
a
important to you?
mm, okay. Well, since this is a conversation about well, your platform is about immigrant stories. Like, if people haven't listened to our episode before, um, I'm a child of Indian immigrants that came to Canada in the 70s. And so I've been growing up in mostly in Montreal as a first gen Indian Canadian. And so I think I think travel is just like part of my genes. I think travel is in all of our genes, but like, I knew we were gonna have this conversation today, and so I was thinking about it yesterday, and I was like, you know what? I think when you're a first gen kid, you're automatically a traveler. You're traveling every single day between the world outside and your world at home. Your world at home is like this like microcosm of your country, your home country, your roots, right? So like I walk into my house and like, my mom's wearing traditional clothes and the food on our table is Indian food and my dad's eating with his hands. And special occasions, we're also wearing traditional clothes. Our religion, our faith is different. Um, all these things, right? That is like the things that you want to experience when you're traveling. And so I was experiencing in a way travel every single day. And I think that like primed me for my love of travel. Like I think like, I think I don't know, I don't even remember what we've talked about, but we've talked so much about how hard it is to be a first gen kid or the child of immigrants and like how you're always between two worlds. And you're always navigating that. You're always navigating the Western world versus the world that your family came from. And it is difficult and it's a worthy conversation. It's a worthy sentiment. But it's also really beautiful because it gives you, right from the beginning of your life, this understanding that the world is not just what's in your backyard. The world is not just your little community that you live in. It's not just the city that you live in. Everyone doesn't speak English. Not everyone is the same religion as you, right? Like that's what happens when you are not, obviously there's plenty of people who are born in the same place and they've lived in the same place and their parents are from the same place and their grandparents are from the same place. This is a reality for many people, of course. But I think and they might understand and appreciate that there's different cultures and there's diversity, but like as a child of an immigrant, that's a lived reality. You know it, it's inherent. Your roots are not here, they're elsewhere. And so that like I think right off the bat you already have much more of an open mind.
That's beautiful. You mentioned about those people that never left their hometown or whatever. Do you think they're missing out or they're just like, I think they're just happy for like where they're at?
Yeah, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I just there's a big world out there. The world is a massive, massive place, and I don't think we're meant to just be in one place. I don't think we're meant to just see our backyards for our entire existence. So, I know travel is a privilege. I know it's not something that everybody can do, but if you can, you should. It is like the most expansive thing that you can do. It is the thing that's going to give you perspective about the world. It is the thing that's going to make you better. It's made me better. I say that from my personal experience, and I know a lot of people who travel extensively say similar things.
Yeah, I love that you said expansive. I said, did she say expansive or expensive?
Both, both. I think I see a lot of people who they're like, but travel is expensive, and it's true. Travel is expensive, and like I said at the beginning of this, like it is a privilege, and I've been really, really lucky and blessed to be able to have traveled as much as I have. But I also traveled when I didn't have a lot of money, right? I stayed in hostels and I ate, $1 meals or bread, like when you're in like France and you're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna have a baguette for dinner. Again, I know it's money, there's resources, there's things involved in getting yourself there, but I think there is a way to travel, and I think a lot of people that, like I don't know, you're spending money on nothing wrong with this. There's a place, there's a time and a place and a situation for these things. But like, there's a lot of people, you got the money to spend to go down to a resort. You got money to go to Disney World. You got money to go to the theme park. You got money to go on, say, a cruise.
Mhm.
I think those are all good and well, and there's a place for that. But I think also like I always prioritized travel. I was always like saving money so that I could travel. It was always something that it's something that I value very deeply. And so it's something that I always made important in my life. And I believe that's why the opportunities to travel have come to me.
So you're like almost kind of like manifesting it, kind of like you put in the position to make it possible.
I think so. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'd love to travel. I wish to travel. You can, if that's something you truly like put at the top of your list. And I
Yeah.
understand that's not something that everyone can do or wants to do. I get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It depends on the situation. Like you're a single mom. That's not going to
Exactly.
happen.
Maybe it can, but yeah, like sometimes people have different responsibilities. They've got
Yeah.
different things that they need to focus. Like, yeah, it'd be nice to travel, but I need to whatever, do whatever for whatever reason, take care of my
You,
kids, do all these things. And
yeah. You mentioned earlier that people goes to Disneyland or like, I don't know, Punta Cana beach resort and whatnot. Do you count that as traveling, or that's like a piece of whatever you're from, and they just move it over there?
it's a tough question because I guess it depends. So when I talk about travel and travel being, something that's life-changing and expansive, like it changes who you are and changes your perspective and it like gives you a deeper understanding of the world around you. And like I've gotten so many amazing lessons from my journeys, and I don't think that you can get that from sitting at a resort for a week. I don't think you can get that from Disney. No, you cannot get that from Disney World. That's a different sort of vacation and trip. When I talk about travel, I'm talking about, and I've done those trips. I've been to Disney World and I've been to the resorts and I've been on a cruise and I've done that stuff. But the travels that have been the most impactful, number one is solo travel, going by myself. I'm I'm now married and we travel together and that's a beautiful thing, but solo travel will always be number one because it is the most it's the most transformative sort of experience you can have. You have to be with yourself, which I think a lot of people are never just with themselves. You have to build, either trust your intuitions or you have to build on those abilities and intuitions that you have. You have to trust yourself to get from point A to point B safely. You have to trust and you have to talk to people. You have to learn how to communicate, right? Like you're somewhere, I don't know, you're in Thailand and nobody speaks your language. You have to figure it out. Um, these are character building moments. I did long-term solo travel, longish term. It was like 2, 3 months that I was in Southeast Asia. And yeah, it was fun, but it was also hard, right? Like there are long days and it's hot and you're sometimes you're lonely. A lot of times you're not. Um, you have to figure out every single day, where am I going to eat? You have to figure out all the time, how am I getting from this place to that place? You have to like constantly be aware of your surroundings in a new place, right? There's so much stuff that's involved in it. Um, That's the stuff that makes it worth it, though. That's like travel is not meant to be like a vacation where you're like sitting and someone's bringing you margaritas day in, day out. Travel is work.
Yeah. I call it the awe of discovery. Like you do something like, dude, there's like a temple over here.
Mm,
You've never seen on a book or anywhere, like it could be like a small temple or whatever it is. Like you see it and you're like, wow, this is the first time I've ever seen this thing. And like you can feel it, at least for me, it expands my brain, you
absolutely.
know?
Absolutely. Because we're not meant to stay in the same place. Like, as human beings, genetically, like we were nomads, right? We were traveling, we were moving. And now we don't do that. But I think it's like inherent in us and even like in our day-to-day lives. Like we cannot stay in the exact same routine forever. Like that is a recipe for disaster. Like literally, like variety is the spice of life. You need to do things that are different. Like that is how your brain is going to stay happy, right? And travel like does that on crack cocaine. Like it is like hurtling you into a different world, a different space. You're meeting different people, which I think you can do. I think you can do a lot of the things that you learn abroad at home, but I think first you need to go abroad and learn those lessons and bring them home. I think has been something that's also changed my life.
Do you think, okay, you're saying like traveling abroad and traveling all over the world, right?
Mhm.
Do you think that the impact that does to people, do you think that it's the same impact if you travel uh, just around Canada, like BC or Alberta or whatever? Do you think it's the same, or do you think it's really better if you travel outside your country?
I think any travel is good travel. And I think no, I think it's absolutely worth traveling the country. Like I think it's a shame that air travel is so expensive in this country. I understand why. We live in a massive, massive country and it's an immense amount of distance to cover. But I think a lot of people have never been out west, and it's literally the most gorgeous place in the world. Like I've traveled across the world, and like, my God, British Columbia is incredible. It is the most stunning nature you will ever see. And it's in our country. This is our country, and I feel like we all have a right to see it. And a lot of us won't get that opportunity, which I think
Yeah,
is a shame.
100%. Did you and your family growing up, did you guys travel a lot or?
No. Okay, so one of so my first ever international trip, I say no, but that's kind of almost not true. My first ever international trip, like a lot of first gen kids, was back to my homeland, right? So I'm like 6, 7 years old and I went to India. And so for, like the big backpackers and world travelers and all those people, like India is like the place. It is the most difficult place to go, but it's also one of the most rewarding places to go, right? Like that is like a huge check mark, I think, for world travelers. And I just casually went there when I'm like 6 years old. So I think that experience also really shaped me. I don't think I probably didn't logically clock that as a 6, 7 year old.
Yeah.
Um, but like to travel somewhere to like, obviously I told you we lived in Montreal. Um, we lived in the city, Western life, and then all of a sudden I'm like in a village and I'm walking around barefoot. And you're walking into, I think we talked about this last time too on
Yes.
on the podcast, and you're walking into people's houses. And uh, I don't know, there was like this neighbor that lived in the house behind, and like I'd just go walk over there and go hang out at their house. And I saw women like make it so like in parts of Asia and Africa, like in rural areas, they make the floors with cow dung. So I watch people do that. That is expansive for a 6, 7 year old, when you see like, oh, hey, the like it's what I started off saying. The world is not just what's in your backyard. The
Mhm.
world is not just made up of your little neighborhood with your school and the same people you see every day, and the people speak the same language and people live the same way and have the same values and culture and faith and all, right?
Yeah.
I think seeing that at a young age was transformative. And you told me you took your kids to the Philippines
Yeah, I did.
recently, and I bet you that is gonna be that has been and will be like the expansive moment of travel in their life.
To this day,
Yeah.
they ask me every day, almost every day, and I'm not exaggerating, is when are we coming back?
Mm-hmm.
Recently, my youngest I just asked me, like, when are we coming back? When are we going back? I'm like, yo, you got school, bro. We can't come back, bro.
Take them.
I
What is
want
it?
to. But my
Yeah.
eldest just traveled Europe for his school trip.
Okay.
I don't know if
And
I mentioned to you.
no, you didn't.
Yeah, so he for his school trip he went to Jesus, I forgot.
School
I don't know.
trip.
Yeah, school trip he went to Amsterdam, which he didn't like.
Okay, why?
He said, "Oh, there's too much." It's he found it too touristy with the sex, with the weed and all that. Like, I get it. It's legal. All right, show me something cool. I was like,
Okay,
hey,
interesting.
and this is coming from a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
You know, we went to Munich. He loves Munich. He says, Dad, like, they got money over there. They're like,
Phoenix
money,
school.
money. He didn't like Berlin. He says Berlin was like kind of boring. There's the wall, but which is cool, but that's it. The good thing about him was when he went to Germany, it was the World Cup
Okay.
or Europe Cup or something like that. So he kept on going to the bar and meeting locals and drinking and whatnot and whatever. And that
Okay.
he loved.
I said okay.
Yeah, I was like, I knew he's gonna drink. I
Yeah,
knew,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's Europe, whatever. He went. He went to Czech Republic. He went to different. Oh, Italy. He went to Italy, but he said his favorite. Asked him when he came home. I said, "Which ones you gonna come back to visit again? When you have a chance." Number one's Barcelona. He loved Barcelona, and then Munich. He really loved Munich. Like, he's so beautiful, dad. And then Czech Republic too. He liked because we were watching Game of Thrones, and like, Dad, it's like Game of Thrones over there. And like the castles and everything, it's beautiful. And it was funny enough because one of a former guest, which became friend after, she lived in Berlin and they met up.
Oh, awesome.
That was pretty
That's
cool.
the best.
Yeah, I was like, they took pictures together and this and that, whatever. It was pretty cool. And again, like, through the podcast, I've known people are all around
Yeah.
Europe. Like, hey, I just hit them up. Like, hey, what's safe or what should be done or whatever. Czech Republic, in Barcelona, and that
Mm-hmm.
was when he was in Barcelona. It was happening the anti-tourist thing when they
Yeah.
were like spraying people and
Yeah.
whatnot. So I hit up my girl. I was like, yo, what's going on over there?
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, oh, just tour that people, the locals are getting mad at the tourists.
Yeah.
Like Shital over here coming to my country and just spending everything. But yeah, no, she was saying that the locals were mad because the tourists will come, pay expensive amount of money on whatever, and then they
Yeah.
bounce.
Yeah.
So how speaking of that, you're saying traveling and everything.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinion about that? Like tourists just coming in, not wrecking, but causing some
Yeah.
disturbances.
So I went to Portugal just recently, and I know this is an issue across Europe, and I know it was a problem in Lisbon, where there's a lot of foreign investment and people just sort of buying up properties, turning them into Airbnbs and hotels. And so driving up the price of all the housing and everything within Lisbon to a point where they cannot live in the city. So it's driving out locals. And you kind of get that vibe when you're there. Like, it feels it's a city. It's a real city. You got whatever you got in a city. You got the architecture, you got the bars, you got the restaurants. Yeah, like, And you see that and you sort of feel the apprehension of the people who do live there. Right? There's this guy, and it's like this hole in the wall, and he's been there for decades, and he serves this like cherry. I don't think it's cherry, but it's a cherry like fruit, and they make a liqueur out of that. And so you go Giginia, I think it's called. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. And so this is like a local institution. It's part of the culture. And now it's just like lines and lines of tourists at any time of day in front of his shop, and like breaking the glasses and things like that. The guy, he didn't break it on purpose, but I assume that there is like sort of that riffraff going on. And yeah, I mean, I think I get it. I think countries do need to figure out a way to sort of control the amount of tourism that's coming in, to control foreign investment, right? But what was interesting, and this is again something that you learn when you're traveling, it's like we were sitting in the cab with a driver, and he was like sort of telling us about that, but he was also saying like 20 years ago, again, I don't know if this is true, but this is what he told us. 20 years ago, you couldn't really come visit Lisbon. It was too dangerous. But people became interested and people started traveling. And so they really cleaned up the place. So Lisbon is what it is today, the safety of it, I suppose, because in large part due to tourism. So tourism isn't fully bad, but it can get bad if it's unchecked. So, I mean, that is a government issue, not one that I am equipped to know how to solve. But I do have another thought about this as well. There are so many places in this world to visit. So many places. And tourists are just flocking to the same 5 places in Europe. There is an entire globe to explore, and there are people and places in this world that would benefit greatly from your tourism. Go to those places. They will be equally interesting, right?
Yeah, but people are worried about their safety.
I was recently listening. I have a response to what you just said. I was recently listening to Rick Steves. He's like the OG travel influencer. Like he made all these
The white
shows.
dude?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. He's done all these like shows on travel, and I'm pretty sure he does tours, and like he was like the voice of travel. Anyways, I was listening to something from him recently, and it was like, fear is for those who need to get out more.
Love it.
The world is not as scary a place as people think it is.
Yeah.
And when you get out there, you realize that.
Yeah. It's harder. It's harder if it's the city. But once you go to rural areas, it's actually better because they're more welcoming.
Yeah, I think, but even in cities, like you just kind of gotta keep your wits about you.
Yeah. Don't do nothing stupid. Like me, a great example, right? When we're at a restaurant, yeah, I grew up in the Philippines, like the mean streets of Philippines kind of deal. Like people will steal your stuff, no questions asked, right?
Absolutely.
And here watching people mostly women most of the time because they have their purses and whatnot, and they'll just hang it by the chair and they'll put it behind them. Like, guy, I could sweep that right now, no
Yeah,
problem.
absolutely.
Like that's what I mean. Like even locally and internationally, don't do anything stupid like that because people will steal it.
Absolutely. Like always be aware of your surroundings and things like that, like petty theft. Like that's going to be a thing no matter what city you go to. And I'm not saying like, oh, go into a war zone. Like that's not what I'm saying, right? Like you can still visit places that are safe
Yeah.
and be safe.
Yeah.
I think the more you get out there and the more you explore, the more you realize it's not as scary of a thing as you would think.
Do you have a top 3 places that you ever visited? Like, yo, this place? Because I remember the last time we saw each other, I believe, you were talking about Rome, and you could not believe the amount of, like, wealth in Rome.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It was like, no, literally Rome. It's like it took me by surprise because it's again, it's one of those places like top five places in Europe that everyone wants to go, right? And for good reason. It's literally like an open air museum, and I love that. But top three place, that's a tough one. I lived in Kenya for almost 2.5 years. So Kenya is definitely my top places.
That's when I knew we're gonna be friends forever. Because
Why?
even though you're in Kenya, we still connect, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you were so happy then.
I was really
You
happy.
gained weight, but you're still happy.
God. So living the life. I'm living the life. Kenya was honestly like such a special, magical place, and like just the ability to go on safaris and be face to face with nature like that. Like for me, it was very spiritual to just be out in nature and have open plains and see animals the way that they were meant to be, the way they are meant to be, free and running around and like,
Eating each other.
yeah, actually, yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, that's my top. It's so hard to pick top three. For you know what? It's like kind of like what your son is saying, like, oh, I didn't enjoy this place and I didn't enjoy that place. And like it also comes down to your own personal experience of what happened
Yes.
on that trip, right? It's I don't think there's any place that's bad. There's no place like some I've had people say to me, oh, I went to this place and it was so boring. Like, no, it's not.
You're boring.
A little bit, right?
You didn't find the thing that excites you. Like when I go to a party, I don't like partying, but when I go party, it could be the most boring party. I'm gonna have fun because
Mhm.
in my mind, I'm gonna have fun. You know, same idea. I'm assuming that like I'm going to Lisbon, and I'm like, okay, it could be like the most whatever mundane part of Lisbon, but if
Mhm.
you're having fun, you're willing to be open and with experiences,
Yeah.
you're gonna be okay.
I think that's the you said it right there, like openness. You have to be curious and open to things and not go places with this like preconceived notion of what it's going to be and what it's going to offer you. It's just like, what is life like here? Talk to people, right? What do they have to say? What is the history of the place? Why is the place the way that it is? When you're interested in history, all of a sudden like places come to life. You
Yeah,
understand deeper what it is about the
yeah, exactly. Like going back to when my son told me like, oh, Amsterdam's like blah. I'm like, so I spoke to him like, I don't think it's blah. You just you didn't go to the parts that you would enjoy. You
Exactly.
know.
Yeah.
But he loved it. It cost me an arm and a leg, and I said, "You better take care of me when I'm older."
What an amazing school trip. I would have
Yeah,
loved to have done that.
it was actually. It's not really a school trip. It was like on the side, kinda like a three professors runs it,
Okay.
and then they've been doing it every year. And so when we found out that this is possible, I knew to myself like like I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna send him to this trip.
I bet that's gonna be life-changing for him as well.
Yeah, he was different when I came home.
Yeah.
He's different now.
Yeah.
And he's
It makes
different.
you different.
Yeah.
It expands your mind and it makes you think about the world in a different way. You're just like, oh, it's not everything's not like home, right? Like we don't exist in a vacuum. There's a whole other world out there. And
Yeah.
um one of the first so, it's funny you talk about fear and stuff, and I know I'm very like whatever, like there's nothing to be afraid of. But I mean, I was also like concerned when I first started traveling.
Yeah.
Um, one of my first sort of solo experiences, I decided to do like a group tour with like young people. So like I don't know if you've heard of Kontiki.
What's that?
Contiki is like group tours for like 18 to 30 somethings. And so it's always like a young crew and they have trips all over the world. And so I did the Europe trip, similar places to what your son did.
Okay.
So like Paris, Amsterdam, Munich, um, where else did we go? Prague, Vienna, like all that sort of stuff, like Western Europe. Um, and yeah, you had that like sort of safety of like having people with you and like the safety of someone sort of telling you where to go and what to do.
Hmm.
And so that was me like dipping my foot in the world of travel.
Traveling, yeah.
Yeah. And it was like this really it was this life altering thing. It's not it's not what I was describing before, where I was like, you need to figure out how to get from point A to point B and you need to figure out where you're eating, like all that stuff is sort of taken care of for you. But as like a first step, holy crap, like that was incredible.
Hmm.
That was like not only are you like visiting all these places and learning things, but you're also partying, but not that's not the expensive bit, but you're meeting all these people from across the world. So there's like all these people on the tour. Like I met so many Australians and Kiwis and yeah, a few Americans and you're like, oh my God, there's people from all over the world. Like obviously you know that, but then you like meet
Yeah,
them and then you're like conversing with them and then you're
it's
like, oh, what do
different.
we have in common? And I don't know.
No, I understand. Like
Yeah.
even I here living in Canada, right? Sometimes I think like you. I'll think about it like I have a friend that was born in Montreal, and her family is from India, and I was from the Philippines. Like, how is this
Yeah.
possible?
Right.
Like the chance of us meeting and becoming friends, like astronomical.
I never thought about that, but it's so true.
Like sometimes I'll be like hanging out with a friend, like having a drink or whatever, like like you or someone. I'm like, I'm talking to a person, especially if they're also an immigrant. I'm like, this person is from Africa,
Hmm.
and I'm from the Philippines, and we're friends. This doesn't make sense.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
You know what? Like, that is the joy of like living where we lived in Montreal.
yeah,
The diversity of people that are coming through in that city and in cities like Toronto or Vancouver. And like, man, that's so important. And there's so much like anti-immigrant rhetoric these days that like it doesn't make sense. We need that diversity. We need to understand that like we don't live in a vacuum. I think that's the point that I've been trying to make this whole time. Like the world is not just like what's in our backyard. The world is made up of different people and cultures and faiths and ways of doing things and different things you're proud of. And
yeah,
my God, that's what makes us special. That's what makes like life interesting.
yeah. By the way, who influenced you to travel?
Who influenced me to travel?
Not Rick Stevens, please.
I've always wanted to, ever since I was a kid. I went when I was, I don't know, I think I've just always been curious about a lot of different things. I mean,
You always had it.
no, and then like when I was, I don't know, like, like 10-year old or I don't know, younger age. And my parents took me to like see an IMAX movie and it was about Egypt and the pyramids. And I was like, I'm gonna go there one day. I went 2 years ago and it was like just that like it just came full circle with that moment when I was a kid and I was like, I'm gonna go and then I got to go and it was like just an incredible, incredible experience. But yeah, like since I was young, I'm just like, I'm gonna do this. Um, and then yeah, you asked me earlier if I traveled with my family. Like I think India was probably the furthest I went with my parents. I went to England as a kid as well. Like, like you go where there's family, like that's how it works with us.
Brampton doesn't count, by the way, in case you
No,
say it.
I've never been. I've literally never been there. Um, and then I started again, with what we were talking about, I did like, you know, resort vacations with my friends. And that like scratched a little bit of an itch. And then I had I had this boyfriend when I was younger and he was like traveling a lot. Like, and I was like, oh, you could actually do this. Like, I don't think I realized that you could just go out in the world like and travel solo and do it by yourself and independently. And like he started doing it and I was like, oh, I could do that. There's nothing stopping me from doing that. And so I did it. I first, like I said, I did the group tour. I did a few trips like with my cousin who lived out in England. And so I was like, hey, do you want to go with me to Barcelona, actually? Um, and so I did it with her. And then at a certain point, I was like, why do you even need to depend on anyone to go with you? Right? Like, it was like, if you're going to wait for people to go places, you're going to wait forever.
This is one of my regrets in my life.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't travel as much because
Yeah.
I wait for people.
Yeah. No. Do not, if someone's listening to this and like thinking about going, don't wait for anyone. And the solo experience is so much more rewarding than the experience with someone, honestly. It like ruins you after because you're like, it's so much more rewarding to be by yourself and like go at your own rhythm and understand yourself. And it's such a, yeah. Anyways, um, yeah. And then I started doing solo travel, which was I did Southeast Asia by myself and then I met the love of my life and now we travel together and that's nice too. It's
And
different,
he
but
pays for it too.
hey, we both pay for it. Um, but yeah, like that's kind of how it snowballed into it. Like me too, I took baby steps. You know, like I did the tour, I did the resorts, and then I did the tour, and then I went with a friend, and then I went full on solo. And it's life changing.
Do you feel like, because you have that experience, right?
Mm.
Do you think it's hard to interpret or tell people that have never traveled, like, dude, you don't like, you're like knowing a different language that is
Yeah,
so cool,
yeah.
but they will never understand because they haven't traveled till they travel.
So you're asking if it's hard to like convince people?
No, like translate the feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even now, I feel like I'm having a hard time. I'm just like, it's amazing. It's so life changing. And like, I could say all those things. I could say it good and well, but it's a lived experience. It's not, oh my God. I used to, I had this colleague once that he was an older man and he was like just not interested in seeing the world. He was like a very curious man and he seemed interested in a lot of things, but he was like happy just like watching documentaries about places.
He's scared.
Huh?
He's
Maybe.
scared.
I,
Dude, there is no other reason.
I don't know.
Unless
But
health reasons, which let's say he's not allowed to go on a plane, his heart's
I
gonna
don't know.
explode.
He literally said to me like he was not interested in it. But anyways, the reason I bring this up is there's only so much you can learn from watching things on TV. I think that's important. I think it's important to learn, and that's a good spot to start. Um, but yeah, there's nothing that sort of compares to the feeling
Yeah.
of doing it.
Yeah, it's different. Like even like when you're there and you're seeing the, I don't know, let's say Victoria Falls, let's say,
Mhm.
and you take a picture and you're like, no, this is not what I'm looking at right now. Like it doesn't even translate at all.
Exactly.
You know.
The photos do not translate. So one of like the most life-changing, spiritual, amazing experiences. So I didn't finish your question about the top three places, but I'll tell you my top experience
Mm.
was doing gorilla trekking in Rwanda.
This I will never do. This is white people shit.
It's
If
not. It's not.
I,
So this is another thing, right?
okay,
Like,
wait a minute. I'm pretty sure out of 100 people, I would say 99 people are white.
no, not true.
Yeah, probably. Hey, why not? We're not counting
What
the people.
country, man? It's not
We're,
true.
we're not counting the ones that's making sure you guys don't get raped by the gorillas.
No, okay. So it's funny you say this because this is what people think of the world, right? Like, oh, gorillas are like violent creatures and they'll fuck you up and whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Not true. They are like the most docile animals. They are like just gentle. And they're like human. They're like human-like. They're not human. They're human-like. They're 98% the same DNA as us. And so like you see their mannerisms, like you see a mom with a baby in her arms, and you see kids like the children gorilla like rolling around and playing and messing around with each other. And like just oh my God. And like you can I mean they're what's the word? I don't remember the word, but basically like they're used to seeing humans because we have these tours that go like you're allowed there your permit allows you to stay with them for 1 hour and you're obviously with a
Oh, it's only an hour?
yes.
Okay.
Maximum 1 hour. It's like very, very controlled. The
My
fee
guy, if that silverback decides to like, you know what, dude, it's time. You guys are all
yeah.
gonna die.
I mean yeah, you can. He'll probably just knock you over. Like one of the
Uh,
silverbacks was like right next to
no, like fucking
yeah, the beating of the
the
chest.
punch.
And they're just like they're silly. Like I saw a video of a gorilla like just like tapping someone on the ass.
That's funny.
Like and so that's another thing, right? Like there's like this fear. You're scared of not just people, but you're scared of like animals and then you see it in real life. Like people think like when you go on safari, like it's just like animals like killing each other, and if they see you, they're gonna kill you and they're gonna jump you, and like they just think it's like pure violence because you see the highlight, like you see the hunts on National Geographic. That
Mhm.
is not what a safari is, and that's not how animals operate either. They're just living their lives. They sleep most of the day
Mhm.
and then they wake up. When they're hungry, they hunt. They're not just hunting 24/7 for no reason. And then the other thing that people don't understand is that human beings, you're not their natural prey. They're not going to see you and be like, I'm going to eat this motherfucker. That's not what's happening. But that's what people think. And this is also part of like why travel is important. You learn that like it's not what you see on TV. It's
Yeah.
not what you see on social media. Like you need I'm talking about animals, but this is the same reality for human beings.
Yeah. You understand them more,
Absolutely.
why they do things. So you're going to Romania soon?
I am. I'm I'm looking forward to it. I
Six
don't
months?
6 months in Romania. I don't know much about the country. I'm really looking forward to learning.
Don't forget my magnet.
Okay. Why do you want magnets of where other people went?
I don't know. I just collecting the magnet. I got it from my wife, right?
Okay.
And I'm a bit of a collector, so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do this too. Thinking about it now, is I think it's from my culture
Hmm.
because we have this thing called pasalubong. It means someone went to a different place and they'll bring something special for you,
Okay.
and it's like a pasalubong to me, you know.
Nice. It's a
So
nice sentiment.
speaking of gifts and getting stuff from places, do you collect things from places that you've been to?
I do. I do. Um, I don't do like the little kitschy souvenirs anymore. Um, I try to buy things that would just sort of fit into my everyday life so that when I'm looking at things or when I'm touching things in my day-to-day life, it reminds me of the places that I've been. So recently I went to Portugal. Portugal does amazing like dishware and ceramics and things like that. So I got kitchen plates from
Oh,
Portugal,
that's
handmade kitchen
awesome.
plates. They're gorgeous. And so every single day, that is something that I'm using. Tiles is a huge thing in Portugal, like the beautiful, like hand painted tiles. So I got some tiles and I had them put cork on the bottom. Cork is also a big thing there. And those are my coasters in my office. So touch points every single day. I was lucky enough to live in Kenya for a long time where I was able to collect a lot of things. from both Kenya and from Western Africa and other countries. And so if it'd be nice if you came over one day. Like my house is just filled with
I
things
will.
from my travels and a lot of things from Kenya
I
and a
will.
lot of things from West Africa and like there's a shelf that I'm looking at. Like I got that from this little store in Kenya. I have a antique bench here, which is from Mombasa. It used to be a railing in Mombasa on a balcony. And
Wow.
yeah, this like artisan turned it into a bench. And so I have that sitting
Did
here
you
in my
steal it from them?
No, I didn't. I paid some dude who might have stolen it. I don't know.
Do you have rhino horns?
I do not have rhino horns. I would never. Anyways, so yeah, I try to pick up things that I would touch throughout my day and not just like a little little keychain or something. I think
I was just gonna say, keychain's
yeah,
the worst. Or the shot glasses.
yeah. Oh my God, I used to do that. I had like a whole collection of shot glasses and then I think I got rid of all of them.
Wow. Okay.
Unless you're like, a party animal and you need 20 shot glasses, then
Nah. First of all, you're not even gonna use it because it's special to you, you know.
oh,
That's why I like magnet because at least you can display it, and
yeah, you
most of
can.
them are beautiful.
Yeah.
You know. Anyways, I think we're there. Do you have something to say before we close out?
Yeah, I have something to say to you. I think we've been talking a lot about, the value of travel and talking to people and being curious and being open-minded and curious about things. And yeah, I'm really, focusing on the travel aspect of that. But I think through this podcast, you have done that as well.
No.
You have traveled with every single conversation that you have had with people from all walks of life, and you've been learning from them and you've been getting to know them and understanding different perspectives. And I think what you've done here is really remarkable and special.
Ah, you're
And
too
like,
kind.
I consider you a world traveler as well with what you've done. You've probably talked to more people than I have.
Yeah, a lot. And again, like all over the world, which is I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for.
Absolutely. And I think like I was saying before, it's important to bring home like the lessons you learn from abroad, but like you're doing it in this really interesting live way. And
Mm.
yeah, you're incredible. I'm really happy for this journey that you went on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love that. That makes me happy because I don't know. Sometimes you're like, oh, why am I doing this? But then you say nice things like that. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm cool sometimes.
It's important. I think like you're giving voice to people and to stories that often do not get a voice.
Mhm.
And as I mentioned before, there is this like anti-immigrant rhetoric that is rising. And so stories that you are sharing are important.
Thank
What
you.
you've done is very important. It's very impressive the last 5 years of this podcast. I'm very happy for you and this accomplishment of
All
yours.
right, enough with the compliments. You're making me
No, it's
uncomfortable.
true. I
Jesus Christ.
Why?
I don't like compliments. As like, give me one and then let's
Take
move on.
it. Take it. Shut up and take
All right. Thank you
Anyways,
again for coming on the podcast. I really
thank
do
you for
appreciate
having
it.
me a third time. It's been a blast.
Hells yeah. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye. Again, Sital, thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you, listeners, for listening. This is Aaron Del Yosa for An Immigrant's Life. I will see you guys later.